On a foggy night, a wealthy man hit a poor homeless woman with his car as she walked in the street, holding her 2-year-old son. The wealthy man got out of the car to check on the accident. As he approached, he was stunned to discover the woman's true identity. He picked her up and rushed to save her life. But after a few hours, something unexpected happened that changed his life forever. On a cold, foggy night in Chicago, the city lay cloaked in a heavy shroud of mist. Streetlights flickered through the gloom, casting eerie shadows on the slick pavement. Inside a luxurious black sedan, Ethan Harrington, a wealthy real estate businessman in his mid-40s, sat in the back seat, his gaze fixed outside. His mind was consumed with thoughts of an important meeting that could shift the trajectory of his career. "Do you think we'll make it on time?" Ethan asked, his voice tense as he glanced at his watch for the third time in 5 minutes. His driver, Robert, kept his eyes on the road, skillfully maneuvering the car through the slick streets. "I'll do my best, sir, but this fog is making it tricky," he replied, his brow furrowed with concentration. Ethan sighed, leaning back against the plush leather seat. He had worked hard to build his real estate empire, and tonight's meeting was crucial for securing a new investment deal. The pressure weighed heavily on him, but just as he was about to delve back into his thoughts, Robert slammed on the brakes. "Whoa!" Ethan exclaimed, startled as the car screeched to a halt. He glanced up to see a shadowy figure stumbling into the street. A woman, holding a small child, was crossing against the light, her face pale and eyes wide with fear. "Are you okay?" Robert shouted as he opened the door and jumped out. Ethan's heart raced as he stepped out behind Robert. The cold air hit him, bringing clarity amidst the chaos. The woman, Sarah, in her early 30s, crouched protectively over her 2-year-old son, Noah, cradling him against her chest. Shivering, she looked up at Ethan and Robert, her eyes brimming with tears. I didn't see you," Sarah stammered, her voice shaking. "I just wanted to get across the street." Ethan took a step closer, his initial irritation replaced by concern. "You're safe now," he said softly, extending his hand to help her up. "Are you hurt?" "No, I think we're okay," she replied, hesitantly accepting his hand. She glanced around nervously, as if the world around her was threatening to collapse. Ethan could see the fear etched on her face. "It's freezing out here. Come with me, and we'll get you both somewhere warm," he urged, his voice firm yet gentle. Sarah hesitated, looking down at Noah, who was clutching her shirt tightly. "I don't want to be a burden," she whispered. "It's not a burden," Ethan reassured her. "I have a vacant property nearby. We can get you food and blankets. Please, let us help you." With a cautious nod, Sarah took Ethan's hand, and he guided her and Noah back to the car. Robert opened the door for them, and Ethan helped Sarah settle into the back seat. He could feel Noah's curious gaze on him as the little boy peeked from behind his mother. Once inside the car, Ethan instructed Robert, "Take us to the nearest grocery store first. We need to get them some supplies." As they drove through the foggy streets, Ethan couldn't help but glance at Sarah. She was looking out the window, her expression a mix of gratitude and worry. "Thank you for this," she said quietly, breaking the silence. "I didn't know what we were going to do." "I can't imagine what you're going through," Ethan replied, his voice sincere. "How long have you and Noah been out here?" Sarah sighed, her shoulders drooping as she spoke. "It's been a few months. After my husband left, I lost everything. We had nowhere to go." Ethan's heart ached for her. "I'm really sorry. No one should have to face this alone." They arrived at the grocery store, and Robert helped them inside, where the warmth enveloped them like a comforting blanket. Ethan guided Sarah through the aisles, picking up essentials: bread, milk, and some canned goods. He even added a few snacks for Noah, who watched with wide eyes, fascinated by the colorful packaging. "What do you like to eat, Noah?" Ethan asked, kneeling to meet the boy's gaze. "Cookies," Noah exclaimed, a small smile breaking through his earlier apprehension. Ethan chuckled, his heart warming. "Then we'll definitely get some cookies." After loading up the cart, they made their way to the checkout. Sarah looked overwhelmed but grateful. "You really don't have to do this," she insisted as they paid. "I want to help," Ethan replied, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You deserve some kindness, especially now." Once they had gathered their supplies, Ethan led Sarah and Noah back to the car. "We'll head to my property now. It's warm, and you can rest there," he said, feeling a sense of purpose grow within him. As they drove through the city, the fog seemed to lift slightly, revealing the glimmer of lights and life around them. Ethan stole glances at Sarah, who was quietly talking to Noah, and felt a growing connection with her. There was something about her resilience that touched him deeply. When they reached the property, Ethan unlocked the door and stepped inside. The warmth enveloped them, a stark contrast to the cold outside. "Welcome home, for now," he said, trying to lighten the mood. Sarah looked around, her eyes wide with surprise. "This place is beautiful," she whispered, taking in the spacious living room filled with soft lighting and comfortable furniture. "Make yourselves comfortable. I'll grab some blankets," Ethan said, moving toward a closet. As he rummaged through, he caught sight of his mother's framed photos lining the shelves and felt a pang of guilt for how wrapped up he had been in his own world. When he returned, Sarah had placed Noah on a cozy couch, where he was busy exploring the toys left behind by previous tenants. Ethan handed Sarah a stack of blankets. "Here, wrap yourselves up. I'll prepare some food." "Thank you, Ethan," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "This means more than you know." As Ethan worked in the kitchen, he couldn't shake the feeling that this encounter was significant. It wasn't just about helping Sarah. It was about rediscovering a part of himself that had been lost amid his busy life. He was beginning to realize that true wealth wasn't just measured in property or money. It was about connections and kindness. But as he stirred the pot on the stove, he couldn't shake the feeling of impending uncertainty. Little did he know that Emma, his cousin, was already plotting to disrupt this fragile connection he was forming. In that moment, as Sarah and Noah settled into the warmth of their new surroundings, Ethan felt a flicker of hope. But shadows loomed on the horizon, and their story was only just beginning. The next few days passed in a blur of activity and warmth. Ethan Harrington found himself increasingly drawn to Sarah and Noah. Sarah, though initially hesitant, began to adapt to her new surroundings, helping Ethan care for his mother, Margaret, who was slowly recovering from her broken leg. Each day, Margaret grew stronger, and her gratitude towards Sarah was evident. "You're doing such a wonderful job, Sarah," Margaret remarked one afternoon as they sat in the sunlit living room. "I can't thank you enough for your help." "It's nothing really," Sarah replied, a modest smile gracing her face. "I'm just glad to be here with Noah." Ethan entered just in time to catch the tail end of their conversation. He felt a warmth spread through him. "You two seem to be getting along well," he said, settling down on a nearby chair. "Sarah has been a godsend," Margaret continued, her eyes twinkling. "We should all have dinner together tonight. It'll be nice to celebrate your recovery." Sarah's expression turned hesitant. "Oh, I wouldn't want to impose," she said, glancing at Noah, who was happily playing with a small toy truck on the floor. "Nonsense," Ethan insisted, leaning forward. "You're part of this household now. We'd love to have you join us." He could see the gratitude and surprise in her eyes, which made him feel even more determined to offer her a sense of belonging. As evening fell, the three of them gathered in the dining room. The table was set with candles flickering gently, casting a warm glow across their faces. Ethan had prepared a simple meal, pasta with a homemade sauce, and the atmosphere was light and inviting. "Wow, Ethan, this is delicious," Sarah exclaimed after taking a bite, her eyes lighting up. Ethan chuckled. "It's all about the right seasoning. Who knew I had it in me?" He winked, and they shared a laugh, easing the tension that had lingered since their first meeting. As they ate, Sarah began to open up more about her life. "I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this," she confessed. "I used to have everything, a home, a stable job. Then it all just vanished." Margaret reached out and squeezed Sarah's hand. "You've shown incredible strength. Not many can rise from such hardships." "Noah is my motivation," Sarah said, glancing at her son, who was now busy drawing on a napkin. I want to give him a better life, one filled with love and security. Ethan felt a pang of admiration for her resilience. You're doing an amazing job, Sarah, and I want you to know that you're not alone anymore. Just then, a knock echoed through the house, causing all three of them to look toward the door. Ethan's heart sank slightly as he recognized the familiar voice that followed. Ethan, it's Emma. His cousin called out as she entered without waiting for an invitation. Ethan plastered on a smile, but internally he felt a twist of unease. Emma was vibrant and outgoing, yet her manipulative tendencies often led to trouble. Hey, Emma, what brings you here? I just thought I'd check in on you, she said, her gaze scanning the room and landing on Sarah. Oh, who's this? Her tone shifted slightly, revealing a hint of skepticism. This is Sarah, and that's her son, Noah, Ethan introduced, trying to maintain a sense of normalcy. Emma's eyes narrowed for a moment. Nice to meet you, Sarah, she said, though her smile didn't reach her eyes. I hope Ethan's treating you well. I'm doing fine. Thank you, Sarah replied, her voice steady, but Ethan could sense her discomfort. Good. Just wanted to make sure, Emma said, her gaze lingering on Sarah, analyzing her as if searching for flaws. Anyway, I just wanted to drop by. Ethan, we should talk later about that project we were discussing. Sure, I'd love to, Ethan replied, though his thoughts were elsewhere. He noticed that Emma was already trying to assert her dominance in the situation. After Emma left, Ethan could feel the tension in the air. Is everything okay? Margaret asked, looking at Ethan with concern. Yeah, it's just Emma being Emma. Ethan shrugged it off, but he felt a nagging doubt. Once they finished dinner, Sarah took Noah to the living room to play, leaving Ethan and Margaret alone for a moment. Ethan, be careful with Emma, Margaret warned, her voice low. I sense she doesn't have your best interests at heart. I know, Mom. I'll keep that in mind, he assured her, though a part of him was reluctant to fully believe it. That evening, as Sarah and Noah settled into their new life with Ethan and Margaret, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that the calm they had found was fragile. Emma's unexpected visit had opened a door to uncertainty, and he felt a storm brewing just beneath the surface. As the fog thickened outside, casting shadows against the windows, Ethan knew that navigating the complexities of newfound relationships would be just as challenging as his business dealings. Little did he realize the real test of trust, empathy, and redemption was just beginning. The days passed, and the bond between Ethan, Sarah, and Noah grew stronger. Ethan found joy in simple moments, watching Noah play, hearing Sarah's laughter, and witnessing Margaret's recovery unfold. Yet, the shadow of Emma loomed larger each day, her manipulative nature increasingly apparent. One sunny afternoon, as they sat in the living room, Margaret turned to Ethan. You should invite Sarah to the park with us today. It would be nice for her and Noah to enjoy some fresh air. Great idea, Mom, Ethan replied, smiling. He glanced at Sarah, who was sitting on the couch, helping Noah color in a book. What do you think, Sarah? Want to join us for a little outing? Sarah looked up, her eyes brightening. That sounds lovely. Noah loves the park. Within the hour, they were bundled up and headed to the nearby park. The sun filtered through the trees, casting warm patches of light on the grass. Ethan felt a sense of peace envelop him as they arrived, the laughter of children filling the air. While Noah ran off to explore, Ethan and Sarah sat on a bench, watching him play. You know, I never expected to find myself in such a welcoming place, Sarah admitted, her voice soft. I'm grateful for everything you've done. Ethan shrugged, trying to downplay his role. You and Noah deserve it. You're both incredibly strong. Suddenly, Emma's voice pierced the peaceful atmosphere. Well, what do we have here? She said, striding up to them with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Ethan's heart sank. Emma, what are you doing here? He asked, trying to keep his tone neutral. I was just in the neighborhood and thought I'd see how you two are getting along, she replied, her gaze flicking to Sarah. Looks like you've made some interesting friends, Ethan. Sarah stiffened at the condescension in Emma's voice. We're just enjoying a day at the park, she said, her tone steady. Is that right? Emma replied, raising an eyebrow. I hope you're not taking advantage of Ethan's generosity. Ethan felt a surge of anger but tried to maintain composure. Emma, that's not fair. Sarah and Noah are guests in our home, and we're happy to help. Guests or not, you need to be cautious. Emma continued, her voice dripping with sarcasm. People can have hidden agendas, you know. Ethan clenched his fists. Sarah is not like that, Emma. She's been through a lot. Just then, Noah ran back, his face flushed with excitement. Look, Mommy, I found a cool rock, he exclaimed, holding it up proudly. Emma's demeanor shifted slightly at the sight of the child, but she quickly masked it with a smile. Oh, how nice, Noah. Rocks are so interesting, she said, forcing enthusiasm. Ethan noticed Sarah's discomfort, and he felt a protective instinct rise within him. We should take Noah to the playground, he suggested, eager to shift the focus away from Emma. As they walked toward the swings, Ethan tried to ignore Emma's presence. Sarah, what do you think of the park? It's one of my favorite places, he asked, genuinely wanting to know her thoughts. It's beautiful, Sarah replied, her smile returning. Noah loves it here. Thank you for bringing us. As they reached the playground, Ethan caught sight of Emma lingering nearby, her eyes narrowing as she observed them. He felt a growing tension in his chest. Stay close, Noah, Ethan called out as the little boy dashed toward the swings. Sarah joined him, laughter spilling from her lips as she pushed Noah higher. Ethan watched them, his heart swelling with warmth, but he couldn't shake the feeling that Emma's presence was a harbinger of trouble. Later, as they were leaving the park, Ethan's phone buzzed with a message. He glanced at it and froze. It was a text from Emma. I know things you don't. Be careful. His heart raced as he looked up, scanning the area for Emma. She had vanished, leaving behind a sense of foreboding. What did she know? And why did it feel like a storm was brewing just beyond the horizon? That evening, as they returned home, Ethan felt a growing unease. He knew he had to confront Emma and figure out her intentions before it was too late. But the growing connection he felt with Sarah made him hesitant. He wanted to protect what they had begun to build together. Little did he know, the truth lurking in the shadows would soon come to light, and the choices he made in the coming days would determine the fate of their fragile bond. The following day, Ethan awoke with a sense of urgency coursing through him. Emma's ominous message echoed in his mind, filling him with dread. He knew he had to confront her and get to the bottom of her intentions. The safety of Sarah and Noah weighed heavily on him. After breakfast, he resolved to visit Emma. He found her at a cafe just a few blocks away, seated at a table by the window, scrolling through her phone. The moment she saw him approach, a sly smile crept across her face. Ethan, what a surprise, she said, her tone overly cheerful. Cut the act, Emma, Ethan replied, his voice firm as he sat down across from her. I got your message. What do you know about Sarah? Emma feigned innocence, tilting her head. About Sarah? I'm just concerned for you. She seems needy. Needy? Ethan echoed, anger bubbling beneath the surface. She's a single mother trying to provide for her child. I don't want to hear you speak about her like that. Emma leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms. I'm just looking out for you, Ethan. You have to admit, it's unusual to bring a homeless woman and her son into your home. What if they're using you? Ethan's fists clenched. I trust Sarah. She's been through a lot, and I'm helping her. You need to stop trying to drive a wedge between us. Emma's expression darkened. You don't know the whole story, do you? Sarah's husband is back in the picture. I saw them together. Ethan's heart dropped. That's not possible. She told me he abandoned them. People change, Ethan. Maybe she's not being honest with you. Are you really willing to risk everything for someone you barely know? Emma pressed, her eyes narrowing. Ethan stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. You're lying. I won't let you manipulate me any longer. As he turned to leave, Emma's voice followed him. You'll regret this, Ethan. Just remember, I warned you. Determined to clear his mind, Ethan hurried back to the house. Sarah and Noah were in the living room playing with some toys. The sight warmed his heart, but the lingering fear from Emma's words gnawed at him. "Hey, Sarah," Ethan said, taking a seat next to her on the floor. "Can we talk for a minute?" "Of course," Sarah replied, looking up with concern. "Is everything okay? I just need to know. Is Peter back? Is he causing you trouble?" Ethan asked, his voice steady but laced with worry. Sarah's expression shifted from confusion to shock. "No, Peter is not in our lives anymore. He's gone for good," she insisted, her voice rising defensively. "Why would you think that? Emma mentioned seeing you two together. I didn't know what to believe," he admitted, feeling the weight of his earlier trust begin to crack. "Emma is lying, Ethan," Sarah exclaimed, her eyes glistening with hurt. "I would never betray you like that. You've given us so much." Ethan's heart sank. He could see the sincerity in her eyes and felt a wave of regret wash over him for doubting her. "I'm sorry, Sarah. I shouldn't have listened to her." Just then, Noah came running over, holding up a drawing he had made. "Look, Mommy, I drew us," he beamed. Ethan took a deep breath, focusing on the child's innocent joy. The drawing depicted a small family, with stick figures holding hands under a big sun. He felt a flicker of hope as he looked at Sarah. "See," Sarah said softly, her gaze returning to Ethan. "Noah and I are here, and we're safe. I just want to build a life for us. Please trust me." Ethan nodded, a newfound determination settling within him. "I will. I promise to protect you both." As they sat together, Ethan realized that his feelings for Sarah ran deeper than he had initially acknowledged. Their connection had grown stronger through shared challenges and trust. But just as they began to find their footing, the doorbell rang. Ethan's heart raced as he exchanged a worried glance with Sarah. Who could it be? Ethan opened the door to find Peter standing on the doorstep, his expression a mix of desperation and anger. "Where's Sarah?" he demanded, his voice low and threatening. "Get away from here," Ethan said firmly, blocking the entrance. "You have no right to be here." "Noah is my son," Peter shouted, pushing past Ethan and into the house. Ethan felt a surge of protectiveness as Sarah rushed forward, grabbing Noah's hand. "You can't just show up like this, Peter. You lost your chance when you left us." The tension in the room crackled as Peter glared at Ethan. "You think you can just take my family away from me?" Ethan stepped forward, ready to defend Sarah and Noah. "They're not yours anymore. You abandoned them, and now you have no say in their lives." The confrontation reached a boiling point, and Ethan knew he had to act quickly. "Call the police, Sarah," he urged, his voice steady. As Sarah grabbed her phone, Ethan stood his ground against Peter, determined to protect the new family he had grown to love. The storm that had been brewing was here, and Ethan was ready to face it head-on. In that moment, he realized that the true measure of trust, empathy, and redemption was not just about kindness but standing firm against the darkness that threatened to tear them apart. And as he looked at Sarah and Noah, he knew he would fight for them, no matter the cost.